we are very much in lying season right now, right? And DK Metcalf, the one thing I didn't mention with him is that the reason I feel bad about that move, not only because he's so similar to George Pickens and I think had a down year last year, but regardless of anything else, he said he wanted to go somewhere warm and to a contender, and he's gone to somewhere cold and somewhere that's lost their last, 9 playoff games in a row, right? Myles Garrett tells the world on the Tuesday of Super Bowl week, I want out. I don't want to be in Cleveland anymore. They've absolutely shot themselves in the foot.
Correct?
With
because
Deshaun
we've had a lot
Watson.
going on. Was that Super Bowl Media Day?
It might have been the
day. Yeah. It was basically like the NFL had shown up in New Orleans. The show was beginning, and Myles Garrett tried to. Sorry to interrupt you, but tried to take over the Super Bowl with his trade demand. Let's truly set the stage.
And he says, I want to go somewhere. I'm 29 years old. I know I'm probably going to Canton if I retire today based on the first 8 years of my career. I want to go somewhere and win a ring and ensure that's actually going to happen. I want to go to a contender. I'll even take less money to do it. I just want to be somewhere where I can actually go and win games.
And he had a statement with his logo, and it was signed,
He came to Radio Row. He went on with Mina Kimes.
He did all the hits.
Went on with Pro Football Talk. He did all of the...
It was all completely orchestrated.
Yeah. And yet, the day before free agency is due to open, Myles Garrett, with a $204 million 4-year extension, $123 million in guaranteed money, $40 million average per year, and a no-trade clause which lasts until he's 36 years old, Myles Garrett is staying in Cleveland, where they now have the pieces to a decent defense and still absolutely no clue what they're going to do at the quarterback position beyond bringing in Kenny Pickett, who...
Kenny Pickett!
I mean, maybe they told Myles Garrett, why don't you stay in Cleveland? We're going to bring a...
By the way,
we're going to bring a Super Bowl winning quarterback into Cleveland this week.
Kenny Pickett. Kenny have to wear gloves Pickett.
Yeah. So look, it's clear when everyone looks at this, they see that Max Crosby got his big money earlier in the offseason. $106.5 million, $35.5 million a year, became the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. By the way, how badly does this kill the Bengals, who said they're going to make Jamar Chase the biggest non-quarterback of all time, and the Browns are going, we'll screw you over. He leapfrogs him by nearly $5 million per year, and then comes out and says, no, I think we can win a ring here. Wild. Just... At least it's the team nearest Canton. If that's where he wants to end up.
I will go ahead and give you my biggest loser of free agency right now, and that is Myles Garrett. I hate the term sold out.
Can anyone who's just earned themselves $200 million be considered a loser?
Biggest loser of free agency by far, not even close. Light years beyond. Myles Garrett. And I hate to, sellout was a big term when I was in the alternative music, as we called it, the 90s, right? You were super cool and authentic, and then you did something and you signed with a major label. Okay. He got his money. He's richer than we will ever be, obviously. He completely sold out. That's just a start. He looks like an absolute fool. The professional integrity looks like a joke. To release that statement, but if all teams will, if you did this with the Rams, you did this with the Colts, you did this with the Texans, you could go on the list. The Jaguars, I'd rather have him done this with the Jaguars, because then he could have said, well, we're trying to build something here, and I believe in Trevor Lawrence. We just hired Liam Cohen. You are going back to the same situation, the worst run franchise in many ways in the NFL in the last 20 years, an owner that you appear to hate, who wouldn't even meet with you. You had the Deshaun Watson situation. We could have said before that the worst move in Cleveland Browns history was Deshaun Watson. Right now, it looks like Myles Garrett's current situation, because he said he never wants to play for you again. And then the only reason he came back was because you gave him a ton of money, and he's not going to win there. He doesn't have a quarterback. It's so bad. It's so bad. I could spend the rest of the show talking about it. He's rich, but nobody respects him. Nobody thinks highly of him anymore. And he looks like a freaking loser who actually doesn't know what he wants or what he's talking about. That's Myles Garrett.
It's funny because I feel like these premier pass rushers, and we do look at the guys like the guys I would put in that top tier who are going to earn that big money. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. I think Nick Bosa, despite down year last year, I think we still put him into that conversation. TJ Watt, Micah Parsons,
Chris Jones.
I mean, Chris Jones is the only one who reasonably is on a winner, and that's because he came into that situation not on a big contract and eventually earned that big contract. But even so...
And as Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, all
those other guys, paying for a pass rusher in a way that you pay a quarterback, and they are getting into that kind of terms of money. You would argue that from a draft perspective, it's the most difficult position to find other than quarterback. From a free agency perspective, it's the most difficult position to find other than quarterback. But actually now, I feel like teams are almost dodging a bullet by not bringing in a Myles Garrett for 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Because take 2 flyers on... You're not going to get Abdul Carter in this draft, but you might get a mid-round pass rusher if you're picking in the middle of the first, and you might have traded for Myles Garrett. And then if one of those 2 lands, you've got them on a cheap deal for 4 years. Like, it's almost become like a quarterback level. You want your pass rushers on a cheap deal and then rotate through them.
Well, this is the smartest thing you ever said. I literally, before we did this show, or obviously recording live, I spent half of my day working on updating the story at talkSPORT.com. This is the headline: ranking the highest paid players in the NFL who aren't quarterbacks, from Myles Garrett and DK Metcalf to Justin Jefferson. One of the most fascinating things when I was putting all this research together and ranking it, and it's based off total contract value, half of the guys aren't that good. Like now the quarterbacks, that's a whole nother thing because somebody's choosing to pay Trevor Lawrence a ton of money. But, you have to have your franchise quarterback. We all accept that. Yeah. But once you start investing major money into a non-quarterback, you look at the guys who have that money, half of them, you start going down the list, really bad contracts. The New York Giants have 2 of the top 10 contracts in the NFL that are not quarterbacks. What are the New York Giants doing right now? They don't have a quarterback. They weren't smart enough to bring back Saquon Barkley. They're paying the wrong guys. You look at the Browns. This is what I also don't understand. A lot of it's on Myles Garrett. A lot of it's on the Browns. They don't want to lose him because he is really good, but you're choosing to give him that much money and you don't have a quarterback. You're not going to win. It's horrible roster construction. And that's one of the biggest things. You look at the Eagles, you look at the Chiefs, you look at the best teams. It is how you allocate your salary cap and how you figure all that out. That's one of the greatest arts right now in pro sports. That's why you have to have the front office right, the head coach right, the quarterback right. But the fact that the Browns did this, Myles Garrett did this, biggest losers to me in free agency, and I just don't like anything about it.
We're not going to talk 49ers now because I'll get into that in a little bit with all their losses. But part of what I think is a prime example of what they've done wrong over the last few years, outside of the Trey Lance trade, is not getting their deals done early, which led to...
Which we see a lot with the Cowboys, right? That's a huge issue for the Dallas Cowboys.
A massive issue with Dallas. Like this, you now got to a point where you could have paid Micah Parsons last year and paid him $31 million a year. Now you've got to pay him at least 40 to match Myles Garrett because you waited another year. Going back to, I keep talking about DK Metcalf, but when DK Metcalf signed his extension in 2022, it was $72 million over 3 years. And people looked at that and went, that looks like about the right level for a T. Higgins. Yeah. Like, that Chase and Jefferson are going to get close to 30 million, but T. Higgins, 72 over 3 with 45, 50 guaranteed. That looks good for him. Nearly 3 years later, DK Metcalf's now got a 4-year, $132 million deal. And T. Higgins still hasn't been signed yet. Teams who take themselves seriously, who do their business in the right way, get their business done early, get their guys at the cheapest point. If they know they're going to keep them long term, sign them a year earlier than you need to, keep them around. And yes, you have to pay them more that year, but the long term, it's going to save you a ton of money. And you look at what the Eagles done this offseason already. Outside of the moves that they've made, the guys that they are keeping around, whether it's Zach Bourne, who they had to sign because he was a free agent, but whether it's Saquon Barkley, they're getting these deals done now rather than waiting till down the line. They did it with Jordan Mailata. They were trying to sign Jordan Mailata now when his deal was done. He'd be costing them $35 million a year. Instead, they're paying him closer to 20. Like, good teams get business done early, and bad teams like the Bengals, like the Cowboys, just absolutely do not get their business done early, and they get left in a situation like the Browns are now, where they got held over a barrel and they were either like, right, we've got Andrew Barry, I have to be the guy who traded 3 first-round picks and gave the biggest guaranteed contract of all time to a guy who has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL and is basically, as we understand, almost as bad of a human being. And now I'm going to be the guy that trades away Myles Garrett. No way, let's throw money at him. And the Haslam's have let him get away with it. It's madness. Absolute madness.
By far the smartest thing to do would have been to trade Myles Garrett and to what? Okay, so put on your GM hat. What do you get for Myles Garrett? At the end, can you hold him to the draft, right? I mean, that's so simple. This is like football 101. You trade Myles Garrett draft day at like 10 a.m. in New York, and what do you get for him? Probably a couple firsts, a first and a third. You're at least getting a first round pick for Myles. Probably a couple firsts.
I think you get 2 firsts. They want one of those firsts to be in the top 15,
but
16
the market
this year,
is the market,
which
right?
Kills their market a little bit. The problem is whoever you trade Myles Garrett to, even if they've got a top 10 pick this year, the likelihood is their next pick is going to be near a 20 to 25 because there might be a playoff team next year. But you have to accept that risk, though.
But you've already lost because the problem with one of the billion problems with the Myles Garrett deal, you screwed up Deshaun Watson so bad, right? You were a loser. You get Myles Garrett. He's really good. You have a defense. You have some momentum. And then you decide as an organization, the best thing that we can do to move all this forward is to sign a quarterback that nobody wants to touch. You know, there was a bidding war. Deshaun Watson, biggest free agent, biggest trade failure in NFL history. Everyone in the world knows that. So you screwed up so bad that basically Myles Garrett wants out. But to save face, you have to keep Myles Garrett, and then you thus have to overpay him, but you don't have the talent to win. At that point, you have to suck it up. You have to eat it, and you have to trade him. And at least you can start a rebuild. You can move it forward. Again, the Browns aren't going anywhere. They're not going to be better than the Ravens. They're not going to be better probably than the Steelers. That's a tough division. You don't have a quarterback. So, you know, maybe in the draft, you get your quarterback there. But you're not winning week 1 with that guy. It's going to take time. And Myles Garrett, he wants to win right now. None of it makes sense, Will.